Never say never. That is what a lot of people say when it comes to professional wrestling, because time and time again we see wrestlers go, and at some point they will always come back. And with CM Punk returning at Survivor Series, it only did reinforce one thing for me, and that is Vince McMahon and WWE are more than happy to put business first over personal politics, because they know they can. In other words, Vince and co know that they will always come back because they have to. Vince built a company in which has so much control in the industry that you can't really do too much in professional wrestling outside of it. Sure, you could make a name for yourself in the indies, but you may not be paid as well. And it was only up until 3 years ago you had an opportunity in AEW. But the relationship for Punk and AEW was so toxic that there wasn't really a relationship at all. And we know that he tried to do something outside professional wrestling in the UFC, and that was an absolute failure. You tend to see this trend with a lot of wrestlers who say they'll never come back to the WWE, but they eventually come back, because most of the time they don't really have anything going outside of it. Of course, there are a few exceptions, like Brock Lesnar, for example, but Brock knew that he'd be making more money for much longer and healthier in the WWE than he would in the UFC. And quite frankly, even though his UFC run was extremely impressive, it does pale in comparison to other UFC heavyweight champions. If we are being honest, if it wasn't for who Brock was before he went to the UFC, most people would have forgotten about him already. I mean, literally think about all the wrestlers that left on a bad note, talked so much shit for so many years, but still eventually came back, like the Ultimate Warrior, for example. But the only true exception that I honestly do believe is The Rock. He's the only person who I think could leave the company, become even a bigger star, and make even more money. He's actually carved his own unique fan base. There's people who love The Rock who've never seen any of his matches. I think Cena and Batista are very, very close to getting that point, if you wouldn't consider it already. But their careers outside the WWE are still a work in progress, and they've done fantastic. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not hating on Punk. I was there that night, and that is the best night of my life. And I completely understand, a man has to make a living. But I think it's important to know why WWE is so okay with just putting business first. Why they're so content with just the long game. Punk is the only person, Hulk Hogan, Bret Hart, Ultimate Warrior, you name it, who I truly did believe was not going to come back or ever come back under any circumstances. But the reality is, one bridge he failed at crossing and the other he burned. And in some ways, you just have to think that Vince already knew that.